Good evening and welcome to Prime Edition. Tonight, the Kenya Kwanza side has named its representatives to the dialogue committee that is expected to broker a truce between the government and the opposition. We have details lined up for you tonight.
Now, in 1965, Kenya had its first female leader elective in elective politics, and I'm talking about none other than Grace Monica Akech, who is late. She died this year. And 58 years later, what inroads have been made by women in leadership? Tonight, we'll be looking at women in leadership.
Obviously, the question of the gains made and how they need to be protected, that's the question tonight. We'll also be engaging the Honorable B.T. Zalachi, the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti North, as well as the Honorable Wanjiku Moher, the Member of Parliament for Kipipiri, both elected in a single constituency. And by the way, both of them have been nominated at one point or another, and we'll be having that conversation a little bit later. First things first, the highlights.
I want every farmer to listen to me because this is what I do in my farm. Yeah? When you double the use of fertilizer, there is a direct correlation to the production that you get.
Feeding the nation. Government reduces the price of fertilizer from 3,500 to 2,500. Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah to lead Kenya Kwanza team to the political truce talks with the opposition. The government suspends the operations of WorldCoin in the country. And women breaking barriers in politics. We look at the strides made and what the future portends. And you remember the last elections gave us 7 female governors, and we will be looking at that too. Lucy Mwaura is a sign language interpreter. My name is John Jacob Kioria. You're very much welcome to the broadcast.
And I am Regina Manyara.
The government has reduced the cost of the subsidized fertilizer from the previous 3,500 shillings to 2,500 ahead of the short rain season expected to begin next month.
President William Ruto is calling on farmers to take advantage of the 2 million bags that will be distributed through the e-voucher system to increase food production.
Buoyed by the expected increased yields from the long rain season, the government is introducing new measures that will make affordable food production in the country. While the government projects that the season's yield will be 44 million bags of maize, the president says the lowering of fertilizer prices from 3,500 shillings to 2,500 shillings will boost food production and bring down the cost of food commodities.
The total amount spent so far on the fertilizer subsidy program is a small fraction of the annual cost of consumption subsidies, and yet its impact is nothing short of tremendous. Our target this year and annually going forward is to produce 61 million bags annually between this year all the way to 2027.
The head of state is calling on farmers to take advantage of a cheaper fertilizer to enhance yields.
And I'm told that yesterday alone, 34,000 bags of subsidized fertilizer was sold to our farmers. Many farmers who use 1 bag per acre get anywhere between 12 and 15 bags. But if they double the use of fertilizer, and I want every farmer to listen to me because this is what I do in my farm. Yeah? When you double the use of fertilizer, there is a direct correlation to the production that you get.
The fertilizer to be distributed to 7 million registered farmers through the e-voucher system has been formulated for specific regions, crops and types of soil.
It is also the first time that fertilizer has been delivered directly to farmers on the basis of land acreage and crop production capacity. Thanks to technology.
To reduce post-harvest losses, the government is in the process of acquiring 100 maize dryers to be distributed strategically to NCPB depots, as well as subsidize the cost of drying grains.
The government of Kenya is not only going to provide the facilities for them to do the drying, but we are going to meet half the cost of drying so that we minimize on the almost 20-30% losses that we that normally we lose because of management of the post-harvest challenges.
He announced that the allocation to the Agricultural Finance Corporation, AFC, has been increased from 2 billion shillings to 10 billion shillings.
To politics, it will be a clash of political minds after the Kenya Kwanza team announced a team of 5 to the mediation talks led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah.
The team, comprising of Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot, will now face the Kalonzo Musyoka-led Azimio team in talks to be moderated by former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, and will center on 5 issues, among them the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is the IEBC, as well as the entrenchment of the office of the opposition leader.
The stage is now set for talks between Kenya Kwanza and opposition Azimio la Umoja. This is after the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance unveiled its 5-member team, led by the leader of majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, for talks with the Kalonzo Musyoka-led opposition team. Among the team by Kenya Kwanza include Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot, Embu Governor Cecilia Mbarire, East Africa Legislative Assembly AL MP Hassan Omar, and Catherine Wambilianga. The Kenya Kwanza team insisting on 5 key parameters for talks, which include the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC, implementation of the 2/3 gender rule, entrenchment of the Constituency Development Fund CDF, the establishment of the office of the Leader of Opposition, and the amendment of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Azimio, on its part, wants the talk to center on the cost of living, electoral audit and reforms, inclusivity, non-interference in other coalitions and their constituent parties, and probe into the alleged police brutality.
What we are asking the interreligious groups to do, just call a spade a spade. Call out these people who are doing this and let them stop blackmail, because we can't blackmail this country progress for so long.
And now we hope that the dialogue that is happening between the President and the former Prime Minister will yield a peaceful settlement.
Speaking at the launch of the post-election evaluation report by the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the Attorney General Justin Muturi stated the 2 parties must settle on the agenda that will be addressed, or the exercise will be in futility.
If they fail to talk, wewe utaenda nyumbani, si wewe utaendelea na kazi yako. Watu wakikataa kuongea ama wakukubaliana ni nini watazungumzia, because there must be talk about talks
of our nation and issues that will result to progress of our country. Yeah, that's why I say the noise after elections then should be organized. Yeah, because it's past the campaign period.
The Attorney General Justin Muturi has intimated that his office is ready to receive any proposals that will emanate from the talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, given that the 2 coalitions are bound to sit at any moment. Abdiaziz Hashim for Prime Edition.
Let's get into some very controversial story. And the government has suspended the services of WorldCoin almost 2 weeks after the company embarked on an aggressive enrollment campaign here in Kenya.
A statement from the Ministry of Interior says the suspension remains effective until relevant agencies certify the absence of any security risks.
This comes even as the Capital Markets Authority issued a statement saying the WorldCoin and its activities are not registered or regulated in Kenya.
Our reporter Frederick Mwoki is on this beat, and we're now linking up with that, or rather bringing you that story in detail.
In the last 2 weeks, major shopping malls and entertainment spots in Kenya have been abuzz with thousands of people queuing to have their iris scanned by WorldCoin at a cost of 7,000 shillings.
Huu ni muda ambao umepatikana kwa Kenya. Ni pesa za bure. Ingawaje ni pesa za bure, lakini kuna ule mwekezaji amewekeza. Na akiwekeza kuna biashara anataka tufanye. Si kutaka Wakenya wanataka kuja kusimama hapa. Ni pesa hakuna.
Is actually real. There is no scam here. And I can say as a matter of fact, we are trading with real money.
A statement by the Ministry of Interior says the suspension covers both WorldCoin and any other entity that may be similarly engaging the people of Kenya and will remain in place until the authorities determine the absence of any risks to the general public whatsoever.
Tunashangaa kwa nini serikali ifunge na mahali yenye watu wanapata pesa kidogo yenye inawasaidia, yenye wengi imewasaidia kimaisha.
Kwa sababu ya pesa, tamaa ya pesa iliposapo, lakini hiyo kitu haujui inatoa maji na peleka wapi.
Questions are now being raised as to who authorized the activities of the company in the country after almost a month of operations.
What are the safety guarantees that the government is making to ensure that the data will be exclusively used for the intended purpose and the citizens will not suffer or get any loss?
Kindiki, Kithure and Owalo have already differed on the matter of WorldCoin. So who do we believe? Who will the public believe? Is it Kindiki, Kithure or Eliud Owalo?
Following the immediate suspension by the government of operations of the WorldCoin in the country, the big question which lingers on the minds of many Kenyans is what measures or strategies is the government going to implement to ensure data safety of all its citizens online in this digital era. Reporting for Prime Edition from Nairobi, my name is Frederick Mwoki.
Of course, Parliament there is questioning the legality of the operations of WorldCoin and, of course, who allowed it to operate in the borders of the Republic of Kenya.
Indeed, as they say, data is king and we need to know who is using it for what. Now, a section of human rights defenders want protection, claiming a majority of them have fallen victim to blackmail, assassination and brutality.
Speaking during the opening of a 3-day forum that brings together various human rights defenders from different countries, the group in particular pinpointed the political arena, terming it as the main ingredient in human rights violation.
By networking of African National Human Rights Institution aims to address various challenges faced by human rights defenders globally. The platform will also provide a practical guide on how to expand the civic space through spearheading accessible mechanisms to counter human rights violations.
In relation to human rights defenders, states have a duty to protect HRDs against any form of violence, retaliation or intimidation as a consequences of their human rights work.
An element also to discuss a little bit what are the constraints in civic space, what are the trends, and how do we try to address jointly some of the shortcomings and some of the challenges and maybe also opportunities that we can all see.
There's a very sad story here. 2 suspects have been arraigned at a Kisii court for spiking a middle-aged man who later died.
The duo, Caroline Kawera and Purity Kajuju, who were presented before Kisii Senior Resident Magistrate Christine Ongweno, pleaded not guilty to the charges.
This as the Makadara Court has granted the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, that is DCI, officers 14 days to hold 5 people for forgery of documents.
KBC Law Court has given a green light to the prosecution to hold the 2 suspects for 14 more days to complete the investigation into the matter. The suspects were arrested in Nairobi after they were found in possession of the deceased's phone, laptop and other personal items. Senior Resident Magistrate Christine Ongweno ordered the suspects to appear in court on August 11, 2023 for pre-trial.
Ombi la afisa ambaye anachunguza kesi hii, na kwa sababu hamna pingamizi yoyote kwa ombi lake, ninyi mtaweza kuzuiliwa kwenye kituo cha polisi cha Nyanchwa Police Station hadi wale maafisa wa upekuzi watakapomaliza uchunguzi wao.
And Makadara Law Court has charged 5 serial fraudsters for conning people on court matters. Senior Principal Magistrate Gerald Mutiso granted investigating officer custodial orders to detain the 5 suspects for 14 days.
They are alleged to have committed several offenses, including offenses against the administration of justice, which profanes the temple of justice.
Elsewhere, the Environment and Land Court has stopped the government's directive that had lifted the ban on logging. President William Ruto lifted the ban on logging that has been enforced since 2018. Elsewhere, former Migori Governor Okoth Obado's case continued on Wednesday. The defense lawyers took to task the witness, a taxi driver who drove the late Sharon Otieno and her killers to the murder scene.
If the journalist told this court that Oyamo got into the car, would that be a lie?
Kama mwanahabari alieleza hii court Oyamo aliingia kwa gari, inaweza kuwa ni uongo.
Mimi sikubeba Oyamo kwa gari. Siwezi kuongea mambo ya mwingine.
Michael Mondiga for Prime Edition.
In a family in a Mukoyani village in Kakamega County is in shock after their kin who went missing 17 years ago reappeared.
Boni Unyeshi, who was assumed dead, left from Nairobi back in 2006 only to show up unannounced.
His wife had already settled down and bore a child with someone else. There's more than his roundup.
It was a cocktail of reactions in this Mukoyani village homestead when 42-year-old Boni Muyeshi, who was presumed dead, showed up 17 years later after disappearance. The wife had to send her current spouse away after the turn of event.
Lakini maajabu ya Mwenyezi Mungu, tumemwona mtoto ndio akiwa mfano namna gani mtoto anaingia katika familia wote na watoto wake, hata bibi yake amependa sana kumuona bwana wake mwenye amepotea miaka zaidi ya 17 au 18. Kia mtoto anaingia kwa boma.
In Migori County, police officers in collaboration with members of the public have this afternoon intercepted a house girl who was making away with a 1-year-old male toddler. According to police officers, the suspect, Agnes Atieno Onyango, was left in the custody of the kid within Sango Estate in Homa Bay County when the parents left for work today morning and was reported missing a few hours later.
Kachukua gari ya kazini yangu, tukamwomba gari, tukatangulia Migori. Nikadeploy picha mtoto kila mahali Migori. So on our way to Sirare tukapigiwa simu. Nilikuwa nimeacha watu watatu pale posta. Wakaniambia mtoto amepatikana na tumepata huyo mama ambaye kwamba yuko na mtoto kwa gari ambaye kwamba ilikuwa inaenda Sirare.
Also, the family of 3 people who were shot dead while harvesting their crops in Mutati, Igembe North is appealing for financial aid to help lay their kin to rest.
Nimeomba tu serikali itusaidie wakati tumeingiliwa na maharamia. Watu wameuawa, hakuna kitu tumewazo naye, hata ya kula hata ya kunywa, hakuna kitu tumeipata.
Finally, traders in Machakos County are decrying the high cost of commodities following the rise in fuel prices. The traders say the rise has trickled down effect on prices of other commodities, which in turn has forced them to hike their own stock of goods.
Kwa wakati huu tuko na changamoto sana. Kitunguu bei imepanda tu sana. Juu saa hii kitunguu inashindana na unga. Kilo ya kitunguu kwa sasa imefika 180, lakini tunaona itafikia 200 kama hakutakuwa na jambo lingine.
Yusufar reporting for Prime Edition.
Now to that village in Kakamega County, I tend to think 17 years is quite a long time to have disappeared without a trace.
Clearly the lady does not understand the saying mvumilivu hula mbivu.
For 17 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
The National Assembly is urging the executive to establish a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to ease the burden of the scourge on Kenyans.
Marakwet West Member of Parliament Timothy Torotich, who moved the motion, said the existing legislative documents on cancer prevention do not lack actually a critical provision of funding that is critical in reducing the challenges caused by the dreaded disease.
In supporting the move, lawmakers raised concern over the pesticides and drugs imported into the country, some of which they say have been banned in other countries but are sold in the Kenyan market.
Prick the conscience of this government, then I don't know what does. Madam Speaker, we have a progressive legislation in this country known as the Cancer Prevention and Control Act of 2012. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, that law, as established, is a skeleton.
How do we control the spread of cancer when we still are allowing pesticides in this country that are banned in other areas of jurisdiction because of the mess and the hazard associated with such pesticides?
when world science in peer-reviewed medical journals said that certain cough syrups were damaging our children's lungs, the pediatricians did not do further research. They simply stopped prescribing it and pulled it off the shelf. So the Pest Products Control Board has refused to save the lives of Kenyans. So Honorable Timothy Toroitich, no matter how much you say we should put money into preventing or treating cancer, first we must start by the most obvious. Remove the products that are causing cancer.
As we put in this, Madam Speaker, we need to request the government, first of all, through just the NHIF card, can we improve it for our Kenyans to use it in hospital? For those who are going for chemo, for those who are struggling, they have to come to Kenyatta. Madam Speaker, we can be better.
She spoke last on that story, and she's with us in studio. Obviously not to talk about cancer,
yes,
but talk about women in leadership. She's elected in a single constituency on an ODM ticket in Dagoretti North, and we'll be pairing her up with Wanjiku Mohia, the Member of Parliament for Kipipiri. We're talking about women in leadership, the gains made so far, and of course the steps being taken to protect the gains or advance the gains.
But before that, let's have a quick breather. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Nikiwa amiri jeshi la jeshi la majeshi yetu ya Kenya, nataka niseme kwamba yale yaliyotokea leo asubuhi kwa muda mfupi iliyoletea wananchi wasiwasi mwingi, sasa imeangamizwa na jeshi letu la nchi kavu na polisi, na nawashukuru wao sana kwa juhudi zao za kuwaangamiza hawa maharamia.
영준 신부님 시신 명예훼손한 거, 구영사 후배 죽이고 그 가족들까지 위협한 거
제발 부탁 들어주십시오. 아들이기 때문에 안 들어주는 거야. 노인네가 진짜 감히 지금 누굴...
Now let's do business. Now the government is considering granting public service vehicles access to tourism sites, including the Manyara National Reserve, in efforts to boost domestic tourist numbers. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Penina Malonza further says tourism marketing campaigns will predominantly shift to online platforms to target the increasing number of tech-savvy travelers who use them as sources of information.
The hospitality industry relied on domestic tourists during the COVID-19 pandemic as key source markets restricted travel to contain the spread of the virus.
This 18 years person may not have much money, so we need to come up with products that can support, be it in the transport. For you to go to Masai Mara today, you have to part with around 30,000 a charter, but if we have buses, tourism buses going there, I'm sure it will be cheaper.
To further grow this niche, the Tourism Ministry is considering a raft of strategies, including the revision of the tourism calendar and granting easy access to PSVs ferrying tourists to attraction sites.
Even as we look at this content, we are also looking at the media houses like KBC that has more than 14 radio stations. If we are to market domestic tourism, then we will need to go local, where the people are.
Online platforms such as TikTok and Instagram will be used to offer information and entice tech-savvy travelers into visiting tourist sites in Kenya. The Tourism Ministry is diversifying Kenya's portfolio to include history and city nightlife, targeting niche markets.
Kenya will continue restricting fish imports as it prepares to roll out fishing projects across the country. Blue Economy and Fisheries Principal Secretary Betsy Njage says the restrictions are part of plans to protect fisherfolk from cheap imports. Among the fishing projects is a 1.8 billion shillings Lewatoni Fisheries Complex that is expected to be operational within the current financial year.
Importation of fish from China is not happening because one of our strategies is to empower the economies of fish industry.
The way you are now bringing up the issue of Lewatoni, it is looking very mild in your submission, but that's a huge project. It's not a mild project per se. When you look at, for those of us who had the benefit of last parliament, we know how much, what it meant by that Lewatoni project to the former regime.
I believe what maybe the PS should be presenting is a program for food operationalization, and maybe, that will give the committee comfort in terms of, what the program is.
We are doing also Shimoni Port, fish port in Kwale County. We are also doing and planning for Lamu Fish Port in Lamu County.
London Distillers Kenya Limited is under the spotlight of the National Assembly over how they were granted a tax exemption of 332 million shillings by the Kenya Revenue Authority last year. In its defense, the firm's manager, Emma Opondo, said the company successfully requested for a tax exemption because of the closure of bars during the COVID-19 pandemic.
And it continued affecting our operations because we kept selling, they're not paying. Because we have declared, we force ourselves to pay, hoping that they will pay. They don't pay, then we sell again. We hope they will pay, they don't pay, then we have to pay the authority because we have declared. When we wrote this letter dated 15 September 2021 to the CS for National Treasury, we had annexed, there were annexures which showed that indeed we had all these monies written off as bad debts because we could not continue.
You don't pay me, and you place another order, and you don't pay me, then why would I continue to sell it yourselves?
After assessment, you know what happens after assessment. So what is the position of the company after assessment?
When the unhealthy competition comes in the market, then such scenario happens. You are asked a question, what is your financial position after the assessment? We are surviving, we are still trying to continue the operation.
Dealers are wailing, and at the same time they are telling us they are surviving. I mean, they are stable. And they are wailing in a manner that declaring losses for 5 years and still remaining in business. It begs a lot of other questions. Okay. That there's some information which are being withheld from us, and at the same time it is being withheld from the taxpayer.
That takes us to Martyrs Sports with none other than Karen Kibet.
Thank you very much, Regina, for keeping us up to speed with the latest in the world of business. Let's now delve into sports matters. My name is Karen Kibet. The world champion Faith Kipyegon has been named the Sports Personality of the month of July. This was the second time in a row she has been awarded after scooping the award for the month of June for shattering the women's 1500 meters world record at the Florence Diamond League.
The record breaker was awarded for breaking the women's mile world record at the Monaco Diamond League, winning the race in a new 4 minutes, 7.64 seconds mark. Kipyegon chipped nearly 5 seconds off the previous world record of 4 minutes, 12.33 seconds set by Dutch athlete Sifan Hassan in 2019. It was a back-to-back S-Jack award for Kipyegon, who had been rewarded last month for shattering the women's 1500 meters world record at the Florence Diamond League.
I took this award as motivation because it has motivated me a lot still to get many awards as possible, and I'm now heading to Budapest, which I'm going to double over the 1500 and 5000.
The 29-year-old athlete became the first Kenyan in history to break the mile world record. She closely beat African 100 meters record holder Ferdinand Manyara to the title. Manyara became the first Kenyan to win a Diamond League 100 meters race after beating Botswana's Lesile Tebogo in Monaco. For Prime Edition, I'm Fred Njogu.
Thank you, Njogu, for that report. Commonwealth Games champion Mary Mora will head to Hungary later this month, seeking to win a first world title of her career. The Diamond League winner has yet to win a world title, having finished third in Oregon, USA last year.
With the Commonwealth Games title in her bag, the Diamond League trophy already secured, and the African Under-20 gold medal in her possession, Kenyan 800-meter star Mary Mora is looking for two major titles missing in her cabinet, the world and Olympic titles. She will begin her journey of winning those two titles in Budapest, Hungary this month, when she takes on the world in the 800 meters, a race she has conquered over the past 2 years. She will be among the gold medal hopefuls for Team Kenya, which is determined to better their performance at the World Championships, set for 19th to 27th this month in Budapest.
I think last year tukiwa World Championship Oregon, ndio nilipata my best time 156.7. So this year I'm targeting to learn 155. God willing, mwili kirespond mzuri na nikiwa na afya mzuri. Tashukuru sana. Hiyo ndio target yangu.
I think team tumetrain poa, tuko sawa. So target yetu ni kufikisha, let's say kwa relays tufikishe finals. And then from there tutaweka plan nyingine.
Na aim tuko nayo sasa hii ni kutarget kufika top 8 kwa World Championship. Tukikuwa top 8 inamaanisha tutakuwa direct qualification kwa Olympics.
Having won just 10 medals in Oregon last year, 2 gold, 5 silver and 3 bronze medals, Mora's performance in Budapest will be a build-up to the next Olympic Games to be held in Paris, France next year. Mora is in the Kenyan camp at the Kasarani Stadium, together with Nelly Chepchirchir, Zablon Ekwam and Boniface Muresa, among other stars who are going for nothing less than a medal in Hungary.
Thank you, Buckley, for that report. Former Kenya Premier League champion Sofapaka FC have appointed Francis Haringo from Burundi as their new coach as they prepare for the new league season. The former Rayon sports coach, who has signed a 2-year deal, will be assisted by his compatriot Pablo Nduwimana. Former coach David Ouma has been appointed sporting director of the club. Football Kenya Federation Premier League new season kicks off on the 26th of this month, with Sofapaka opening their campaign against defending champions Gor Mahia. Sofapaka, who won the league title in 2009, finished 10th last season with 42 points. And those are all the sports stories we had for you tonight. I'll see you tomorrow with more sports news. My name is Karen Kibet. Don't go too far, because right after this short break, my colleague John Jacob Kioria will be back with an amazing interview you don't want to miss out on.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa. Nakumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Mimi Lea, sitakubali kukaa hapa unitie miji dawa na unidunge miji sindano nisoyajua mwanzo wala mwisho. Never.
Kwa kelele hizo Lea, utatiwa kamba. Utafungwa kamba.
Siwezi kuwapatia pesa zangu hawa makurabu, itakuwa ni kamba kutupa tu. Hata fadhali nikawapatia maskini. Gentlemen.
Yes, madam.
Najua imekuwa muda mrefu sana tangu tufanye kazi yetu. Lakini do me the honor.
This will be the last time you see her. Please. Sitaja hata jina langu.
No member of this family should be working for this company now.
And who else to trust if not family?
Are you one of Joel's sons?
I need you to keep a close eye on Nick. I don't trust him fully.
He's nothing close to the truth.
Nick, baby. You've never been so big on character. What's changed?
Can I talk to you in private?
Yeah.
You cannot protect us all the time.
None of you can afford to be caught up in this mess.
I can wash my hands and let you handle this mess by yourself with Akina Jazz and your teeth.
There's someone trying to bring us down. Us?
Why do you think I'm here, Nick? Alice stole our data and document. Do you have any proof of that? You're working on it.
This is a matter of life and death.
It's already dead.
Really, George?
I warned you.
And thank you. I can't believe you're actually here.
Ya Allah, taqabbal.
Tusiwe ni wenye kuhukumiana na tusiwe ni wenye kujaji wengine, yani kuambia tuwa encourage watu katika kufanya ibada na kuomba msamaha na kurudi katika nyumba za Mwenyezi Mungu Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Na vile vile pia mja anaweza kutekeleza vitendo vyema sana mpaka akawa karibu sana na janna, lakini akatenda kiovu kimoja ambacho kinampelekea kupata adhabu ya Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala na kuingia katika jahannam.
Of course, in this special edition, we're focusing on the achievements of women. The last elections obviously gave us 7 elected female governors in the country, and we had quite a number of women representing single constituencies, like the one I have in studio, the Honorable Beatrice Elachi from Dagoretti North. In a bit, we will also be joined by the Honorable Wanjiku Moher from Kipipiri constituency. But thank you very much, Mashima, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. Probably before we get into a conversation, it's important that we shape the journey of where this conversation began. Before these numbers of women could be elected as governors or members of parliament representing a single constituencies, and by the way, even senators. For example, in Nakuru, as well as in Machakos and in Isiolo, we have women senators. Let's just have a look at the journey that shaped up the 2-thirds gender rule principle.
Though women were hardly recognized in leadership and governance immediately after Kenya's independence in 1963, their contribution in the struggle for independence cannot be ignored. Little-known Priscilla Abwao was the first Kenyan woman in the Legislative Assembly in 1961, pushing the women agenda in governance.
Kenyan history does not actually record her as being there for what exactly in particular. Some of them would say that maybe she was a secretary taking notes. However, in the British press, she was known as a Kenyan suffragette. Why? She was carrying the women's agenda, and she wanted the Independence Constitution to also have provisions that would allow for women to participate in the governance and administration of the country. Of course, it did not see the light of day.
Post-independence, Kenyan women continued jostling for their placement in the political space, albeit with little success, especially during President Daniel Moi's era.
Talk to people like Sophia Abdi, who participated she wanted to be a member of parliament as far back as the early 90s, but it was KANU and President Moi and the leaders of her area at that time that held her back. Wangari Maathai, when she actually, during the advent of multi-party politics, and she was vying, and it was none less than President Moi who stood on a podium to demean her, you know.
Charity Ngilu will be remembered as the first female contestant for presidency in 1997. Gender parity, largely fronted for by the Maendeleo ya Wanawake, was a key agenda in the constitutional review process that sired the 2/3 gender rule to reflect the needs of the modern-day Kenya.
As late as 2010? Yes. You could not confer citizenship to your child. Even if you, Mensa, had a child, gave birth here in Kenya to a child, and your husband it was not a Kenyan, your child would not be Kenyan, because you as a female citizen did not have the right to confer citizenship to your child.
The implementation of the 2/3 gender principle, as stated in Articles 81B and 27(8) of the 2010 Constitution, in both elective and appointive positions, has however been beset by challenges.
The biggest challenge that we faced, and without fear of contradiction, has been political will. You find one group in our parliament is supportive, the other group is not supportive.
Legislations to implement the law have faltered on several occasions.
We have had so many bills, but what I would call a step forward is when we have had government bills. And one of those was Duale 1 bill. Although it was defeated at the floor of the House, but that was a step in the right direction. And then came Duale 2. It was defeated. I was in Parliament, but I could tell why we lost that one was because some of the strong supporters of the bill were out of the country. And quite a number of them were women. They had gone on official duty.
This stalemate led to the submission of 6 petitions to the then Chief Justice David Maraga, seeking his advice. Maraga subsequently advised President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament for failing to enact legislation on implementing the gender rule as provided for in the Constitution. This sparked the wrath of the legislators. On its part, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission pushed political parties in the 2022 general election to fulfill the 2/3 representation in their nominations. Even though the numbers were not met in the elective posts, the Senate met the deficit through nomination that brought on board 18 women.
When you read what is there in Senate, there are 16 seats reserved for women. And people keep on asking, why 16? It was 47 divided by 3. So that was to cater for 1/3. That was very well thought out. Although there are nominations, but that was well thought out. Now, when it comes to the National Assembly, the reserved seats are 47. Looking at all the constituencies in this country, that does not make a third at all.
The president is making the right moves. He has told Parliament, look, there's a dissolution order. This thing has to be resolved. Can you please do something about it? Parliament have taken up the challenge. They are making it, the Kenya Kwanza team have made it part of their agenda. We are following up on it because we engaged with the presidential memo. And so we expect to see Parliament tabling a bill, or at least the government side tabling a bill that will finally resolve the issue of the 2/3.
In appointments, there has been progress as well, with 7 women cabinet secretaries in 2017 and the same number in 2022, but an additional 3 more assigned the cabinet-level portfolios.
That is as far as the journey goes. And from a nominated senator to running in Dagoretti North on a Jubilee Party ticket, failing to clinch that seat, becomes a Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly, is impeached. She tries to come back. I think out of reasons best to know to those who are blocking her, she doesn't make it back. But then this time she bags the Dagoretti North MP position on an ODM ticket. She joins us in studio to tell us about that journey, because what we have seen much more is about the experience of women in the country. But let's deal with the personal experience of Beatrice Elachi. From a nominated senator in 2013 to now an elected member of parliament representing a single constituency in 2022. If you could just briefly walk us through what you went through.
Well, first of all, it's an interesting journey. And when I look at Daisy, then I remember our days in civil society. So you walk a journey, a good journey. But then the most important thing, it gives you sort of a path that you will always remember where you have come from and why you should always work for women, especially. Be a bit biased, work for women. It's because of that journey that is a journey. Sometimes you will close your door and ask yourself, okay, what is all that I've just gone through? And so I think for me, what strengthened me and what has continued strengthening me is having worked with civil society and still being able to continue just going back and forth with them and following. And if there's anything, going back for more advice, it has strengthened me. It strengthened me when I was the Secretary General of APK and coming in now to become a nominated senator and then being a whip of the Senate. But then more importantly, you go through a journey where people, many people, when I meet them, they say, oh, you're very lucky. You're a person with a lot of... But they forget some of these journeys are just through God's grace, by the way. You must trust in God first in all these journeys. And then when you come through, you must build a sort of a skin and build your niche. Whether it is good or bad, build it and be firm on it, regardless of many things that will come. Because people will talk, people will say, you'll do a lot of things, but you'll always find yourself clouded with so many things. But the best thing I've learned is just focus on what you want to achieve, and you will achieve it better. Don't focus on, I always call it in kwa Kiswahili, fitina nyingi hii wacha. You focus on what you know is good for your legacy, and it is important for the people. And in that journey, you'll always meet very many selfish people who believe you have to do this for them and do this other thing. Now, you have to come out of that racket and start focusing on how do you ensure you touch many other people's lives. So for us women, you find your journey very tough, because whether you do good, whether you do what, you will be criticized, you will be told everything. But the best thing is you keep quiet, be a Kibaki. Just focus on doing what is right till the end, and people will see. But the good thing, many people see. And it's now when many people are realizing when women are in leadership, they work more harder and they are able to deliver even. In Dagoretti North, 1 year down the line, I think the few things we have done in terms of now looking at the bigger picture instead of being that selfish picture where one wants to be the one to rotate on the things they want. I mean, we've touched the schools, and for me, education is key. So whether you come with all these other sideshows, I have to focus myself to ensure that education, is it qualitative? Are children able to see it better? Are we getting good results? And are we able to move those children now to better schools as they move out? So those are some of the things. So when you come to Parliament, also you will laugh with your colleagues, but you'll always know. They're even wondering, now how did this woman, how did this woman, first of all, do it? And so all I want to say is first to thank Kenyans. Kenyans who have now believed in women. We want to appreciate the 7 governors. And for me, Nakuru County, congratulations. Homa Bay County, congratulations, because they have hit the 2/3, the 1/3 that we are talking about. I mean, Nakuru has gone 100%. So, and I'm hoping the women in Nakuru are going to do a job that the Nakuru people will never forget. And so it does not matter what happens there, what matters. And that is one thing I think we've learned through every woman who has been in leadership. And for me in Nairobi, so my role model is Mama Beth Mugo. So what did she do in Dagoretti that I should do better is what I'm trying my best. So she did schools, she did roads, she ensured. And we have to do those things, but we must remember also the politics and dynamics have really changed. And we have young people, so how do you engage with young people and make sure that they are also moving on in the right direction. So for me, when I see education and I see the president pulling education and strengthening and saying he wants change, that is one pillar I support. I support fully to see how do we change this education system to go back to the days we benefited in education. And that is why we are here today. How do we do it for our children?
Absolutely. Before we bring in Mheshimiwa Wanjiku here, because she's already with us, a quick one, and I forgot to actually mention that in between you being MP and Speaker of Nairobi County Assembly, you became a Chief Administrative Secretary, as CAC in the Ministry of Gender and Public Service. But a very quick one. The drama we saw at City Hall on the material day that you were returning to the assembly, and the kind of violence you saw there, was it your lowest moment in your political life?
Definitely, it will be your lowest, but it will be also your time when people will get to know you better. Yes, because with women, we take time. So people will joke with you, people will call you names, people will troll on you, but the day you come out, then you come out once and for all, and you say enough is enough. So that patience has helped me to have that patience. And I'll have a lot of patience in many things that we are doing, many things that happen. I'll have patience. But the day I come and say stop, I think my stop is a good stop. Yes, and I never joke with it. I always say, sasa hapa, tumeingia red line vizuri. Sasa tuwache tuangaliane sasa vizuri. So that we know each other properly and we will respect each other. And that is the best way to do. And I've come to learn in politics, you have no choice but to have a red line at one moment. Because that is a time when people say, oh yeah, she's a leader. Apparently in Kenya, sometimes people love very aggressive leaders, which is something women, we can't do so much. But I've come to realize that is how it works. And you must have a moment of it. So, but give people time, be a mother. Yeah. Give people time, they just do their things. But the day you say, sasa hapa, we have to respect each other, and it's not in a bad way. It's that this is just an institution, it's an office. That respect has its own value also.
Because you mentioned about Nakuru, Nakuru County. Let's just focus a bit on Nakuru County. We have that story up about how Nakuru has fared in terms of enforcing the 2/3 gender rule, because you have a governor, senator, and women rep, the 3 top positions in the county occupied by women. Let's have that story up, and of course, as Mheshimiwa Wanjiku here joins us on set.
The promulgation of the 2010 Constitution of Kenya heralds a new era in women empowerment and attainment of gender parity in the country's policy-making institutions. It sought to address the historical marginalization of women in these institutions by barring the holding of both elective and appointive government seats beyond 2/3 of the same gender. The subsequent general elections saw women breaking barriers to elective politics, clinching 16 seats in the National Assembly and 82 in the county assemblies in 2013. 2017 saw women elected for the first time as governors and senators, with 3 in each of those positions. They also increased their number at the National Assembly and county assemblies to 47 and 96 respectively. This success raised the number of gazetted women candidates from 1,016 in 2017 to 1,768 in 2022. Of these women, a record 7 were elected governors, 3 in the Senate, 29 members of parliament, and 115 in the county assemblies. The hallmark of this feat was Nakuru County, where they elected women as governor, senator, and member of National Assembly in 4 of the county's 11 constituencies. These were Susan Kihika as governor, Tabitha Karanja as senator, Liza Chalule as woman rep, Charity Kathambi as Njoro Member of Parliament, Martha Wangari as Gilgil Member of Parliament, Irene Njoki as Bahati Member of Parliament, and Jane Kehara as Naivasha Member of Parliament. Of the 62 elected MCAs, 14 are women. However, they too had to grapple with challenges such as societal norms, gendered violence, and lack of funds that had for a long time impeded women's entry into political leadership.
In fact, we have a culture still in some areas where people are even being influenced. Still, the position of women is in farms and in the kitchen and in what have you.
Some meetings for men wanafanya usiku. As a woman utaenda usiku mikutano. Mambo mingi napitishiwa huko. Wanaongelea huko inaisha.
Sometimes you could go and call your people, you are doing campaigns, someone brings goons, you are all chased away, you run away, you want to save your life.
The marital status is also used to undermine their candidacy.
For me, for example, I'm married in Kirinyaga. They bring marriage issues that you are supposed to be to go to Kirinyaga. That is where you are supposed to go and seek for an elective position. And I was like, hello, I'm born here. Whether you like it or not, my mother is here. So I must develop where I was born.
That is the time I came to learn, am I a different person? Because when I started the campaign through URP 2012, 2013, it was like, who is this Charity? Why don't you go back? Where are you married? Who has married you? How many children do you have? Why don't you go back to Meru and just look for a position? And actually I was so much demotivated about politics because politics became like, it is now undressing me now.
For Irene Njoki, being the lone woman against 4 men in the race for Bahati parliamentary seat caused her family a lot of concern.
My mom was very scared. The first time when I told her, by the way, you know I'm running for politics, she told me, no, don't make us get killed here. No, we don't want any fights here.
Mimi nilikuwa na huzuni sana. Sababu hiyo kazi nilikuwa naona ni kubwa na tena yule anaenda kushindana naye ni Simba hawezi mshinda.
Her choice of a Jubilee ticket in a United Democratic Alliance UDA zone politically ostracized her from her family.
She just came and said, no, you know what? Mimi nasimama na Jubilee. And then I was like, okay, first, you've surprised me that unasimama. Again, now you're telling me Jubilee. And then we were like, what is she thinking? And then the incumbent, the one who was there, who was really, really strong and doing UDA. So we of course tried to talk. Hey, why don't you change your mind? Why can't you go either way? You know. So we were all against her Jubilee thing. You know.
My brothers, my sisters, you could tell when we are trying to plan meetings, yeah, you finish kidogo, then they go, hapo nyuma ya tent, they start saying, will she make it? And UDA was just Ruto in Bahati, nobody else. Yeah, it was just Ruto. So my mom told me, if you're not voting for Ruto, even me, I will not vote for you.
But Irene's resilience and pragmatism eventually secured their support for her bid.
Every time we came up with utafanya nini hapa, I have a solution for that. Look, if you do this and this and this, si tutaweza. Actually, now we started even supporting her kabisa.
Mimi nimpigia guy, ni mimi. Ni wachwe.
Charity too turned the odds in her intermarriage to her advantage, diffusing the hostility between different communities living in Rift Valley through tree planting.
If today we raise 3 seedlings in the Kalenjin community, we shall pick them and go and plant in some schools in Kikuyus. And the picking Kikuyus, we go to colleges and some Kisis. Therefore, this was just my passion to unite people.
Besides their individual efforts, they united as elected and aspiring women leaders after the 2017 elections and crafted a strategy for increasing the number of elected women leaders.
What we are going to do as leaders, can we work harder than men? Therefore, it was from the day we were elected with Jane and with Gilgil MP, we were telling one another privately, if we are going to be different ladies, having gone through a lot of challenges, agreed as colleagues who are elected, can we perform ladies so that 2022, can we also increase the margin of women? And actually the result you have seen in 2022, Nakuru County was shocked. Because people were saying, hey, just go to see what Kadhambi has done in Njoro. Just go to Gilgil, go to Naivasha.
The locals affirmed that strategy endeared women leadership to them.
Tuliona uongozi wa mama hasa sana kama huyu MP Martha Wangari. Yeye alikuja akachanganya kabila zote kwa ofisi yake. Kwa nini anachanganya kabila? Na tunataka mtu kama huyo.
Mimi ni mtu wa bodaboda. Na kuna vile mtu wa bodaboda anaonanga ni kama kufikia kiongozi wa level ya MP ni kama ni ngumu. Lakini wakati Martha aliingia, utaambiwa mama anakuja siku fulani bila kudanganywa. Unakuja na unampata na anakushughulikia shida yako.
Civil society organizations that are keen on equal and active participation of women at all levels, as the UN Women played a major role in empowering them.
We got a lot of trainings which started giving me some courage. Like I appreciate United Nations, the women department, where they were taking youths to motivate them for different positions. And I realized, for how long do I cow? For how long am I going to be tormented? I just made a decision. If this is the destiny God has for me to continue pushing so that at least I can vie and look for where I can serve more people in bigger platform, then I chose it.
With the 2022 election long gone, they have set their sights on 2027 and in earnest, they are building blocks on that strategy. Whereas the region they represent have peculiar challenges, education featured as a key pillar in their campaign strategies and which they have prioritized in fulfillment of their pre-election pledges.
We are very happy to have our mothers leading us, taking leadership positions and see their contribution, especially to the common mwananchi.
Sisi tulitoka kwa kuni. Tukasema hiyo macho imezimika sana na kuumwa na kichwa. Tukakuja kwa makaa, tukaona makaa si mzuri, tukawachana nayo. Sasa tukakuja hapa kwa Modern Clean Energy KBC. Hizi katusaidia sana. Sasa ile mama ametutumia mwalimu, ametufundisha table banking.
They have also focused on youth and women empowerment. They are transforming lives in different ways. The Gilgil MCA employed her former student as her personal assistant.
We began the journey from class 6. She was teaching me social studies up to class 8. Later on, I joined Kenya National Service. And when I was in the service, she was nominated MCA. So I just asked for a job. And back last year, that was 2022, on February, she called me on board.
Lessons learned from years of political marginalization have made the women politicians more resilient to the challenges ahead and determined to succeed.
I'll tell you, this job is not easy. Because as much as you try, there's still that person who thinks you have not done anything.
What I tell women who are interested to join politics, let women be associated with something. Because myself, even before people were pushing me for politics, they knew Kadhambi for peace, Kadhambi for education, Kadhambi for conservation.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Watu wa Maimahi umupo, stesheni uipendayo ya Shoro FM imekuandalia tamasha kali ya Mugithi Night Jumamosi tarehe 5 Agosti mwaka huu hapo VIP Nest Lounge Maimahi. Karabi na bendi yake wataporomosha burudani kabambe kuanzia saa 2 za usiku hadi che. Ma-MC wetu wa nguvu Mwana Mwende, Joseph Njenga na makoha wa Vioja Mahakamani wamewatayarishia vichekesho kemkema na zawadi kocho kocho za kushindaniwa. Mafansu wa Naivasha na Maimahiu mnaombwa kujitokeza, tujumuike pamoja kupiga sherehe. Hii itakuwa kali sana.
It was named Nakuru Girls, the story you just saw, and clearly they are doing very well. In studio, we're also joined by Mheshimiwa Wanjiku Moher, the Member of Parliament for Kipipiri. Thank you very much for joining us, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, and good evening our viewers, good evening Kipipirians, Nyandaroans, Kenyan and East African at large. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited by the story of Nakuru Girls. Personally, I schooled at Nakuru High School. By then it was mixed, but now it has Nakuru Girls. So I think the spirit of Nakuru Girls has really been there since time immemorial. But as a woman leader, I'm excited that the country is moving to the occasion of embracing women leadership. And a woman, is a mother, and a mother cannot be compared by any other human being possibly, because all the way from the Bible, the mother of Jesus, and the women who have been there in the leadership in different continents, we have seen what they have been able to do. Particularly in Kenya, just to mention, at least we have seen the numbers grow. I assume they do not grow just for the sake. We can look at the numbers of women, even the very previous one of our time, leave alone the Phoebe Asio and the rest. Women like Alice Wahome, women like Cecil Barire, even women like Waiguru, the governor for Kirinyaga. You find, if you correlate the elections in Kenya, ideally 90% of MPs do not come back. But, sorry, 70%. It is studied so. But from 70, a very huge number of women do come back. So why do women come back in the election? Obviously, they are performers.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, because both of you represent very famous constituencies, Dagoretti North, Kipipiri. First of all, in the last elections, you were facing a titanic battle. You were dealing with a majority leader in the National Assembly in the name of Amos Kimunya. Actually, a former minister, a powerful minister in the Kibaki administration, shaped the race for us, dealing with a person like that, obviously with a lot of privilege. And here you are, Wanjiku Moher from the East African Legislative Assembly, now wants to be Kipipiri Member of Parliament.
I think it is just a perception that one person could be very mighty, and if you go to the story of the Bible of David and Goliath, anyone can defeat anyone. And I want to say it wasn't only him as the majority leader, as a serious contender. You were 13 of us, actually 12 men, and I was the only woman. So obviously men kept me at pace, and every idea that I brought on the table, if I went to meet women, the next location men went to meet women. If I went to meet the youth, the next location men went to meet the youth. And it was a mixed grill of politics, of my time. I think very different from 2013, very different from 2017. Again, now I just came from a diplomatic background where the speaking and the manners and everything was to be so diplomatic. But you move with the time, so you find it is deep, you also go deep. So we faced each other, mainly with the genders. At least, thank God, because I had served before as a women rep for Nyandarua, and for that reason I had tangible things to do. And now this tells the women who are in leadership and even men, it's very important to do something tangible to your constituency. Because if you could move in Kipipiri, or rather in Nyandarua, you could always see tents for women. And they looked like simple things when I was doing them, but a tent cost up to 100,000 in Kenya. So the women who are in the village, they collect thousands, 500 for months before they acquire a tent. If you went to the women groups, they had sheep, they had chicken. Even I know one woman in a place called Geshigerera, a very dry place, who keep on telling me, to date, I always see my house and I remember you, because I bought her some goats and she sold and she did a house. So at least I had done some tangible issues, activities that the constituents or the voters could connect me with. But again, the Wanjiko of today, in fact, in Kipipiri, we said Wanjiko for Wanjiko. I was riding on that. Wanjiko of today is not the Wanjiko of 2017, is not Wanjiko of 2013, and Wanjiko is getting sharper and sharper. Any agenda you give in your manifesto, they're able to evaluate and see if it is workable or not. For instance, one person was saying, we will do an airport here. And I was literally asking them, where will you be going by air? Because even by the time you board, and another one is in our Turaga, the Turaga person will arrive in Nairobi before the one who is boarding an aircraft. So you see, Wanjiko can now be able to see, you are speaking of water, they connect with that. Speaking of roads, they need good roads. Speaking of education, for instance, it is first time in Kipipiri, history has been made that we have been able to move our school fees in all the schools in Kipipiri from the 15,000, 17,000 up to 20,000 per student per year in day school to 10,000. What does this translate to? A parent is paying 2,000 shillings only per student in a day school. And the people asking me, where have you gotten more money? Have CDF been increased? And I'm like, no. That is how a woman can cook chapati for Christmas in a 5-bob kasuku and everyone will feed. So we are encouraging more women to join the club.
All right. Mheshimiwa Beatrice, you come from, I would, for the lack of a better word, a volatile constituency in Nairobi County. I mean, the person you were running against in 2017 and the kind of politics done there, I was actually feeling sorry for you in 2022, and look at how you performed and actually won that position. But I would imagine with the dynamics of that constituency, obviously there are challenges that came with it before you got elected, Mheshimiwa.
Yes, but first of all, in all the politics that we have, political parties are very key in that. But I also want to thank the people of Dagoretti North, because you see, people just look at numbers, but they don't relate. You see, you ask yourself, even in 2017, by the time 36,000 people are agreeing with you, and you're in a party which is I don't know what, you should thank God. And so when you start with that, all of them are believing, we tried, let's try again. And that's how politics play, by the way. So when you are a good politician and a good strategist, that's how you play your politics. And so I want to first say that it's true. And there's a lot of things that people say, a lot. But even after you have been elected, the first people who will always find it will not understand, because they would wish you remain that way, which it cannot work in politics. In politics, when you're elected, now you bring in everyone. And they must work together, regardless whether they voted this side, whether they were with you or not with you. But you're supposed to, we'll never understand that. But they forget you have to do that so that you don't divide so much and you don't now find yourself again in a very tougher situation. So in Dagoretti North, our politics are good, I'm telling you. And let me tell you, everyone will tell you this, another one will tell you this, the other one will just decide. A lot of propaganda and a lot of every day talking about someone. And I always tell my people in Dagoretti, please, when you come to me, speak of yourself. Please, please, please. And they know now. And if you continue speaking about, so and so has said so, but I will just ignore you. And you will talk to yourself until one day you'll wonder, what are we saying? Because we'll never answer you. You continue. And I think it's the best policy. If you find people who are just continuing talking about, instead of thinking even future, instead of realizing we have schools, these schools are our schools. This is where our children go. How can we make it better so that it reduces the burden, as the way Kipipiri is saying? I would wish Dagoretti mixed. My parents, at one point, to reach and say, we are able now to pay that 10,000. And the rest is paid by Gava, and you can now subsidize. And everyday children can have their lunch. We are trying so much. Yes, we have a few donors who have come in to support us. But you see, when you see what governor is doing and you want to bring in so that at least you can feed even 20,000 children, that is my wish, and I will have to do it. When you see a woman coming and telling you, Mama Dago, for 50 years, we have not seen a Mudhiora road from Naivasha road to just Muslim. And it's only 1 kilometer. But the transformation that it brings. And we are praying that we would wish CS, and I know he's going to support us, CS Murkomen, to now move it from Gatina Primary to bring it now to the end. You see, when you open that road, even people who are going, you feel a matatu will enter. When it is raining, you are able, everything transforms.
Right.
It transforms for better. But you see, not many. When I look at Lavington Girls, which is the only now girls secondary school that can take all these girls within Kawangware. Again, we have to go back. A school was, for the last 10, 15 years, it has never moved. But one thing I want to tell national government, the way they are building their classrooms, really, we must have a conversation. They build a classroom, I am telling you, with no stairs. And they left it. It has no stairs to go to the classroom. It has nothing. You are thinking, do I bring it down? And you have spent public resources. So even when you hear the president coming in very tough, it's because he knows there are some things you call mediocre is now what you can see. A classroom you look at and you wonder, so how are we going to... And when you look at what CDF is doing, you're wondering, so what's the difference? Why can't we come together and agree that this is our standard? In Nairobi, you imagine one classroom is taking more than 100 children. So why can't we agree with Public Works that one classroom should be built to take at least 70 kids comfortably? Because right now, that classroom of yours of 40 kids is not working. A child has to move the desk for them to open the door. It's very unfriendly. So, and those are some of the things, as women, you see, we look through and we are saying, really, can we change?
All right. It's a very interesting angle.
And can Public Works change? Give us something better for Nairobi. When you know children are more, you think of it better for them to have a conducive environment for schooling.
Mheshimiwa Wanjika, the Honorable Welachi raised a very important point on the role of political parties in promoting women leadership. I don't know how your party propelled you or, helped you in terms of advancing your fortunes in Kipipiri, but speak to that, the importance of a political party in advancing the women agenda.
Thank you very much. I think we are speaking to all women, even those who aspire to be in politics. And I want to say that political parties are a vehicle which is very important. And if you miscalculate at that point, I think you start losing it from the word go. Time and again, you may find someone like Irene Joki, who was in Jubilee in Bahati, a popular UDA zone, and she still made it. But believe me not, she must have struggled to climb the mountain of that UDA. So the political parties is very key. You must zone. If you are in ODM zone, you must go with the ODM. If you are in the UDA zone, And thank God I'm in UDA colors. I'm reminding viewers that you have still UDA. So you have to go with UDA. If you are in the other party, if it is Wiper, you have to go with the Wiper party. Reason, there is always a moment in politics, particularly the very last minute, which comes like a euphoria, which is assumed that it will not be there next time. But it has proved that it will always be there. So for one to be strategic, to calculate well, you have to be with the party. For me, for my party, I would say it really worked extra mile, because you could see the current president, who was the deputy president there, move around in Mount Kenya and the whole country at large with his brigade. They come to Kipipiri, and Kimani Ichung'wah was third on top of the caravan, and he said we must uproot Kemunya, meaning we must remove Kemunya. So then the people get the song,
and in Kikuyu it sounds something
in Kikuyu, obviously it sounds very well, particularly that particular time for the campaign. And also the Rigathi Gachagua come, the deputy president, when they come in big numbers as a political party, they show that might. And even the Mwananchi is able to see that I also don't want to go the side which is losing. So like that time I had an advantage, because Uhuru was not coming to the constituencies in Mount Kenya. So I was so sure that Uhuru would not come to campaign for Kemunya. Otherwise, if he would have come, then maybe it would have shaken me a little bit. But now I was able to say, you see, my incoming president is even coming to tell you to vote for me. The outgoing president is not even coming to tell you to retain the majority leader. So the political parties really play a key role. However, we have seen independent candidates. This calls to order the political parties in terms of management, because at times they also do manage politics of the party very badly. You can find the party leader, for instance, in ODM zone, I know many times he normally secure for women, and he said this one is for women. Even in our party this time, the president now had also secured some seats for people. For instance, he had said in Kipipiri, you will not do nomination. In some areas, you will not do nomination. But sometimes, because the party leader is also busy looking for votes, you find the political parties manipulating and trying to create some nomination in your constituency, bringing confusion. But that caused them now to order to manage in a modern way, that if this is the way, we should go that way, because we have seen quite a number of independent candidates. However, even independent candidate will definitely spend more money than the person who will be in a very popular party in a certain region.
You know, but two things have been raised here.
See, just to do, I like one thing, that Baba has taught politicians how to make sure you survive your political parties. And he's the one who started that, that if you don't retain also, not just the women, good politicians who come back, especially when you're on transition. And that is what even is helping now Kenya Kwanza in the House. You can imagine if now they went to a real battle and then they were just told, okay, we'll just clean. Tell me how they would survive in that House. But that is one thing the former Prime Minister, our party leader, has taught many political parties. And for us women in ODM, by the way, if there is one darling we have, is Baba. He will do everything. But in terms of respecting women, and especially if you're a woman who understands what you want to do, and you're sharp. Yeah, one thing, but people just look, but he knows you're sharp, you can deliver, and you will work. That is how he retained Wanga to make her the first woman governor in the whole Western region. And Wanga has proved, even now, she has to work double hard to prove to all the men who have been there for the last 10 years that indeed in 5 years you can deliver a country.
Which leads me to the question, Mheshimiwa Beatrice, because Mheshimiwa Wanjiku Mohi talks about the goodwill the president gave her when she was running in Kipipiri, the goodwill you got from Baba, Raila Odinga, in Dagoretti to run as member of parliament for Dagoretti North. Question is, why then have we not been able to completely enforce the 2/3 gender principle, and make it a law that can be relied upon whenever going to elections? Because there have been several failed bids in Parliament.
How I wish. By the way, this is just political parties. If today, for example, the president would have said, I want to see 30 women of UDA on single constituencies in my regions that I'm strong, they would have won. The same with ODM. The same with Wiper. We would have gotten the 2/3 without going into all these stories. We would have achieved. And so I am hoping, now that we have goodwill from the president, that we are going to finalize this agenda completely and now see how do women now come in, compete. What I started saying by, we must prove that as much as we are getting our 2/3, that even the few seats we have, when you go to Kipipiri, you hear something good. You come to Dagoretti, something good. You go where, and we are doing it not with money of government or what. You go around and look for other people to come and support you. And we are still pleading, even here. We need more support to prove. Because if we transform those constituencies, then you awaken the other constituency to know that if there is a woman there and a woman there and a woman there, the whole county will transform. And that is our prayer. And that is my prayer. Right. And so, as much as we are saying now political parties, we are hoping in this agenda of talks, whatever, whether talks or no talks, we are hoping our 2/3 will be an agenda.
The Kenya Kwanza side has said that's the agenda. I don't know about your side.
No, it should be our agenda. For me as a woman, it is my agenda. Yes. I think we have talked about it. The women who started the agenda, now they would wish to see this dream before. They would wish to see this dream. Right. So for me, it is a dream that has to come to pass.
All right.
Yes. Let me mention that the president really has goodwill, and he has always had goodwill. And now that he has the stelling, I think we shall realize this within his time. Why do I say this? When in the 11th Parliament, when we joined as the first women reps, you remember the women rep had no kitty.
Yeah.
And we struggled in this country. You can imagine my county expected me to do something for them, a women group or any other. And I had really no shilling. We were moving with our own money, while the counterparts from the Sigo constituency had the NGCDF. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction that because I am one of those who established the GAF fund, the most goodwill came from the deputy president then, Honorable William Ruto. He really supported this journey. He walked with us until we realized. I can tell you the first year we missed, and the second year we missed, and by the third year he stood with us. The GAFAD was even taken to the court. He still stood with us, and I think he has had very goodwill. Even looking at the almost 30 positions in Parliament now, many of those women will speak exactly like I'm doing. If you ask Kadhambi, she will say the president supported. These Nakuru girls, the president supported. So I think now the current leadership has goodwill, and we will move far and we shall attain it. Right. Just to say something what my colleague says, in fact, luckily we are good friends. She supported me to go to Yala. Even now she supports me to launch the NGCDF in Kipipiri and the Cancer Center. And may I report that we are in good progress. I think we are almost finishing by the end of this year. And a month or 2 months ago, I think we went to Canada, to McGill University, on an exchange program or a session that we were learning governance and such matters. And we were several countries. It came out so conspicuously that political parties that are smart, they retain their membership in Parliament so that they can remain very strong. That's why you find ODM with James Orengo until now he has exited Parliament to go for governorship, but you'll find his voice, and maybe a newcomer definitely will not take the day, because even the tradition and practices of Parliament, it is a tradition in Parliament that if you are a senior member, senior in terms of how many times you have served,
your ranking.
You're the ranking member, so to speak, you are always even given a chance to speak, because time and again the speaker find away from the senior members how to guide the debate of the House. So So it was very clear from several countries from this world, not only in Africa, that the smart political parties also retain their membership.
All right. There's something I want both of you to think about. I want us to just, listen to the word on the street, just a 1-minute clip on what people are saying about women leadership. But as we do that, think about it. Mheshimiwa Beatrice Elachi, Mheshimiwa Wanjiku Mohe fought so hard and of course beat bigwigs and emerged as leaders. Must we enforce the law that brings in women representation, or we just allow the natural course of people seeing women in leadership and then they decide this is what we want? Think about that. Let's hear about the word on the street.
Ujue mwanamke ni mtu wa kusimama na msimamo mmoja. Anatuinua kutoka mwenye hana na mwenye hana na mwenye hana.
Tumeona venye tumeongozwa na gavana yetu Igolo, ametusaidia sasa hasa sisi wakina mama kwa miradi yenye ameleta kwa kaunti yetu, na hata tukiangalia kaunti zingine wamama wako juu.
Ukiangalia kama kuna hospitali pale, ukienda kwa hiyo hospitali uangalia, unaona hiyo Madam Waiguru amepana ile kazi inapaa na inapatikana katika Kirinyaga.
Tofauti na wale wengine, mama amekuwa akifika mashinani sana na amekuwa na programs ambazo zimekuwa na changamoto sana. Programs labda zile za kutouch wamama pale mashinani na wale wako under privilege ambao tujaona kwa hao wengine ambao ni wanaume.
Anaguza kila upande anaguza na inakuwa sawa sawa. So wamama wanajitahidi, na hata gavana wa Meru anajitahidi, anafanya kazi nzuri.
Wale tuko nao MCA gavana MCA Meru County ni ambao wanafanya kazi mzuri, na sijawahi kusikia complain yoyote au hatujawahi kusikia complain yoyote ati hao wamama ambao ni MCA wa Meru County wako na kasifa au wanapigana na mama. Wanafanya kazi mzuri na tunasema wasikilia hapo.
There's actually a lot of confidence amongst members of the public in the leadership of women, which exactly fits into the question that I was asking. Must we make a law to enforce the 2/3 gender principle? Why don't we just allow the natural course to take its way? People will elect Beatrice Elachi because they believe in her leadership.
Well, first of all, I want to thank our role model, Anne. And Anne has pulled in Cecily, has pulled in Wanga. All of them were looking at Anne and Charity at that time. And you see, today, I'm happy even for Kawira Mwangaza, my friend. Yes. I mean, when you hear men now talking, and it's in Meru, you thank God. And I'm hoping we are just going to continue praying, that she will do a fantastic job. You see, I always say, about being elected next is another thing. First, do your legacy. Do your legacy. Don't start thinking about an election. You've just, men are the ones who finish, they start thinking, 2027, no. First, as women, I think we pause and you start looking at your name, your legacy, those two. So in terms of do we have to? Yes, we have to, because it's in the Constitution. But the good thing, even when you are bringing it, now when you are appreciating the principle completely, you'll have seen there's growth. There's growth in where we started, and there's growth now where we are. And you're able now to listen. And especially now when you hear people talking about the women governors, they are the ones who now make us become who we are. Because now you start working hard. You remember Anne, when she started, the challenges she went through. She was actually impeached. Yeah. But you at that time you're being impeached, just know you're doing something that many people won't like. And that is where you'll find yourself in that situation. So it's not her alone, it's Kawira Mwangaza, it was Charity, all of us. And even us, I know. Our impeachments are also, I normally call them keyboard warriors. That is where our impeachment is. They will say anything. And so everyone will start calling you, are you seeing? It's on social media. We are 500 on the page or 200 on the page. You were elected by 57,000 people. Don't forget, you have a number of 100,000 plus registered voters. Never forget that. So you can never please everyone, and you will never get all those votes. But you must make sure what you told, that small booklet you talked about, someone can pick two things and say, yeah, ndio hafanyi vizuri, lakini angalau moja amefanya. Yeah, because men will never be judged that way. Men, whether you see, for me, if you put me on a scale now of a man, we are darkened day and night. Yeah, but you see, people will prefer maybe what the man was doing. Those who prefer. But you see, they forget, you're a woman. Remember the day you leave that place, always leave generations to speak. The way we speak about Beth Mugo, the way we speak about what Charity did, the way we speak about all the women, what they have done. That is what should be my agenda. Not about how men will praise you. They will not. And don't await it.
Do we need that legislation?
Thank you, and I am really happy to see that you collect views from different counties, and these are people who are commenting from border to Mama Boga to the shops, even to the professionals. So this is real, and I hope in future we'll be collecting views from Kipipiri. You see how I am doing also in matters of electricity and others. As I use this opportunity to condemn the vandalism that is happening, because we are struggling day and night to connect our people. In fact, every day I say lighting up Kipipiri. Then some thieves follow me, switching off Kipipiri. Last week they stole 2 transformers. Imagine, they leave 400 people in darkness. That you wonder, it's really sad that we not go beyond that, because the government is already fighting them in their court already. Now, to your point, yes, it is very good to make the law, because once something is on the law, is already somehow entitled, and it can progress. First, as the many leaders we are seeing today, particularly the senators like herself and the former women reps like myself, came from a law, from the Constitution. I always say this 47 women seat is a very good platform for women to start their political career. If the first time I went to compete with the Kemunya and his PA then who are competing very vigorously, chances are I couldn't even have gotten 1,000 votes, because I was fresh from the corporate world, I was from a bank, I could have been shy, not able to articulate issues, no political background and all that. But the women rep, because I was competing against women, which is in the law, that is the point. The women rep is already on the law. It provided me the platform that now, the next time, Kemunya would say that this one should go and contest in Kinagop, and I could say, you're also married in Muranga. So at least now I had confidence to face each other, right? So it is very good to put it in the law. That has not waited for naturally to come, because if you leave it for naturally to come, it may take ages, and the world is moving very fast. Why are we denying Kenyans to enjoy the leadership of women like they are admiring from other counties or other constituencies if we can have it by law? Remember, some women are also willing to come, but circumstances are limiting them. We have financial challenges, the cultural ideologies, even sometimes religious. We have quite a number of issues that limit women. So let it just be in the law, because there is political goodwill, particularly now, and so that we also move in the right direction.
Mheshimiwa Wanjiku, Mheshimiwa Beatrice talks about, misogyny. That conversation, you're told, go vie where you're married and things like that.
Yes.
Have we been able to deal with misogyny over the years? What limits women in politics?
Now, for me, you see, my dad is a lawyer. Me, I schooled in Western, to make it even worse. And he lives in Lugari, but you'll still find, even today, even at that time, somebody will say, but yes, my mother is a Kikuyu, and I cannot refuse that. And therefore, being a Kenyan, I must speak both languages. So some will use it and say, this is a Kikuyu woman. Even now, they say, the Kikuyus are full in the office. They will not say, and by the way, you'll find our lawyers are the ones who are more, then followed by Luos. The Kikuyus are even the minority. But right now, I'm being told, the Kikuyus are the most in the office. But you see, for me, it's not about who is who. And how I wish our politics can be, have you blended Kenya? Is Kenya there? Do you have all the tribes in your office? If yes, then you're okay. Which we try our best everywhere to do that. But then people forget, You have walked a journey with university students from the time they were in college. They are still, people think you just dump them and start. No. And by the way, people forget politics. The first thing you must learn from Baba and the president is that loyalism starts first. Loyalty, yes. Not just that because you have
loyalty
come
is
and...
the currency.
Yeah. It's a currency, and whether you like it or not, and not just... it's very serious loyalty. So people joke, and you look at them and you wonder, really? We learn from our masters. You learn from the best. And because both of them had learned from each other. And you know, people always ask, okay, so how is the president? The president decided to learn from the best. So he was with Baba, he understands. He was with Moi, he understands. He puts it together and bring his blend. What will you say? He's their student. Yeah. So you have to really respect him. That he learned and he has shown them it works. And it works better. And you have to learn now from him going forward if you want to survive in politics. Yes, you have to learn from the president going forward if you want to survive in those politics. Yes.
You know, balancing between, because like you said, a man can get away with anything, clearly, particularly in politics. But the question here, Mheshimiwa Wanjiku, the striking a balance between your life as a mother, you have other special interests, like what you do with Deaf Olympics and stuff like that. How do you balance between representation, legislation, and your roles back at home?
I think that's why now the question is why women lead us. Because women plan their time very well. We plan time for the house, and we plan time for politics. And also, women multitask. That's why I can breastfeed as I'm putting the firewood and I am listening to someone who is saying hodi.
Yes.
But a man, and this is biological or scientific, even when we are here with you, you may notice you can't concentrate so much. Possibly I'm seeing what your cameraman is doing now, and I am in this debate. So that is why women, and that is the answer why women. You can multitask. Yes.
Why
and
women?
That's a talent, mark you. That's a talent. It's God-given. So don't joke with a God-given item or a natural gift, because that's a talent. It's God-given. And just to point a country like Rwanda, of course, having the background of East Africa, I wouldn't want to miss to comment something with East Africa. You know, after the genocide, the country struggled, and when Kagame came to power, few women were elected in parliament, and they did so well that the citizens observed, and they didn't believe that their country was picking pieces so fast. And the next election, the women were elected in numbers. And the president also did put quite a number of them in the cabinet. The Minister of Education, the Minister of Health, and this ministry did so well with zero corruption. And today, Rwanda is actually in the map. Even when you were in McGill in Canada, it was also featuring time and again in every presentation that now, in fact, the two-third gender rule you are speaking of here may be a topic in Rwanda in the near future, because now women are more in parliament than men. Why? Because it has already demonstrated itself. So this is one country which has indicated zero free corrupt zone in the whole country. Articulation of issues, the country is attracting technology in the whole world. You are seeing their airport, their flight. Economically, even if their population is so small, even their GDP may be very strong in the near future. So in essence, the women leadership, and I'm happy because even our president has put women in almost every key position, like water, even the security which are not within the country, like the national security for the UN and such. I am happy that even women are also in the key positions in Kenya. We are still moving that direction, but we have clear demonstration that women have come of age.
All right. I have about 10 minutes before we wind up, Mheshimiwa, and I know we need to let you go because you're further engagement. But before we do that...
Yes, I have Matanga. I am going, and I am the teacher.
And you must go. It is in your constitution.
Yes, and I have my Mheshimiwa Nabi, who I want to really apologize to. I have kept him from a while now. May he forgive me, but we are still going.
He will forgive you because you're still going.
We're still going.
But from the background of, civil society, because sometimes when you have the conversation of stakeholders in this process of advancing, women rights, sometimes we tend to forget the civil society groups. Coming from that background, what do you think is the role of civil society groups?
You see, one of the things, the role of civil society from the beginning, first of all, is normally to help to create that awareness on issues that need government's attention. One of the things we need to learn is that also, and civil society must learn, that it evolves. You see, when governments get more good governance and they are strengthening themselves, you must learn how to change with that government so that you remain relevant with the country. And so for us as women, I think the key agenda, I think when we achieve the 2/3, you see now the women civil societies must start thinking, so after we have achieved 2/3, then what next? Then you must start building the capacities of these women who are coming in now so that they are able now to perform. And that should be their next role in building that capacity. I know we have many organizations and even embassies that have really supported us. But one thing I want to plead with the president, we also now need government to just come in and support that women's agenda. And in supporting is by ensuring if we have, let's say, for example, resources in government. For example, you have water, you have roads, then how I pray that they can support more in the women's constituencies. Not because you become biased, but you build, so that you build that capacity. Building that capacity is making sure things are moving in that constituency. And that way, now people will feel, okay, then we need more women. Then women can function because they won't have the resources. Because most of the time we end up having, you must enter, look for money, look for friends. We keep on asking each other, support me here today, I have this. Support me this, I have this. Fine, we do it, but if government can just come up with a good kitty for development, and it's not me handling, it is, if it is in this ministry, what is the 30% that you are giving within that constituency for that women? Yes, the same way we are saying support women contractors, support women engineers who can come on the ground and do work. And I think for us, all of us, if you ask us, women are the ones who have come and done some good work that we've just done. You'll find many women are the ones who we have given the opportunity to do it, even if it's not me doing, but I will really request, just know it's a constituency of a woman. I need to see women in my constituency doing some of the work, and they will do it better. So I think as we move, that is one thing I will want to plead with government. Not just women in single constituencies, we really need that support. Women in the 47, they really need that support. I know the president gave them the 1 billion, and we want to see now something that the president will support the women in single constituencies. So it's very critical. I know many people are sort of happy. I get very worried as a country, and I want to tell Kenyans, we have to look at our country. It's very worrying when you look at the African continent at the moment. And in the middle of the African continent, all countries in that middle are in a coup. It should tell us something. It should ring a bell on us. And it should tell us we must strengthen Kenya. And we must build our own Kenya, because it's like if we are not careful, we are just going to remain with this Kenya. And every person is sort of going back to realism where you protect. So as much as we see that, and that is why we must have women, and that is why these talks must be very serious, because we must come out of this quagmire and we must move Kenya now. The young people we are going to bury should not be just going to be buried. They should have a meaning to see good things to come.
All right.
So for me, as I finalize, I want to thank the president for the performance contract. And indeed, one thing I just want to put in as a hanging fruit, tourism. I know he has a good agenda. I want to ask the president, add in tourism. Where is it? It's a very serious hanging fruit. Kenyans are doing a lot of domestic tourism, but push in now, tell the ministry to do a serious marketing and bring back the Chinese tourists. The last time we had the Chinese, there were 85,000.
Yeah.
So we need more. And that is one thing we should push trade with them first as we move on with other things, as we appreciate and call in more tourists to come into Kenya so that our hospitality sector also can work.
All right. Mheshimiwa, as we wind up very quickly, because both of you are members of KEWOPA, and you've talked about civil society organizations. But for you that are elected, what are you doing to encourage others probably who are either fearful or are limited in one way or another to look for political positions? What are you doing as elected members of parliament, particularly representing single constituencies?
Thank you. Just to echo the voice from Honorable Beatrice, civil societies are key in governance. They contribute a lot in shaping the agendas of awareness, because many are times that people are not informed even what they expect of their government or what even members like us are doing, and so awareness is very important. Also, coming to the last point where she has left about tourism, I am happy that we have enough domestic tourism, but I am afraid that even if we go outside to market the foreign tourists, I wonder if the tourists will come, because you can imagine someone has landed at JKIA and they find the police and the young men fighting, removing the SGR, removing the express highway. You just imagine, make that photograph in your mind for a minute, see that you have come from Germany or whichever country, you've landed in JKIA, and you find the country is in chaos. So as much as the government and even us in Kenya Kwanza and every other person of goodwill in our country want us to have a tourism, and it should be there, we must also think how well should we accommodate, even attract the tourist. Having said that, we are doing a lot as women leaders. For instance, thank you very much for inviting us, because this conversation, I believe by the end of this conversation, one or two women will say, oh, so I had contested on this political party, yet my zone was this political party. So this kind of conversation are good. Even when you are debating in parliament, sometimes you find a woman member slightly diverting the debate on the floor. Not that we don't know the standing order, that we can be ruled out of relevance, but just because we want to pass the message to our women in our constituencies. So I would say that they follow the debate, they follow this kind of conversation, they attend the workshops that we do in the constituency. Even when we are giving checks like Uwezo, even if their groups have not been called to come and pick the checks, let them join so that they hear the success story from the women that we have touched. And I think it's a journey that we intend to touch all women, and they should brave, focus, and they should not look at the sideshow. The issue of marriage, the issue of where you come from, it is already overtaken by events. If I did not contest in Kinagop, when 12 men were saying that this one should go and contest in Kinagop, and I was asking them, all of them, where they are married. I had done a research, and I knew one was from Zambia, had married a Zambian. So I was already asking, from Zambia to Kinagop, which is near? From Muranga to Kinagop, which is near? Again, they say that you are sleeping in Kipipiri and your legs are in Kinagop. I ask, do you want my legs or you want my head? You know? So women must really come of age with this conversation and argument, and show men that they are at par and they are not afraid, and they must really focus and go for it. Thank you.
In Kipipiri,
yes, you want my head. You don't want my legs?
By the way, in a serious parting shot, you know, I went to a meeting today. It was just a friendly meeting. And I sat down, I won't say the names, with a few ambassadors, my friend. You know what they told me? They were so amazed that the meeting, they were told the meeting at State House was starting at 9. And you know them, they arrive in time. But they were amazed because they told me a story. They said, you know, when it was during Uhuru's time, we used to come in knowing we will talk, finish Africa for 3 hours before we start our meeting. And therefore they used to know that you cannot put any other meeting when you are meeting President Uhuru. But they have never seen it, and that is only one thing that they will thank the president. I said, let me do it a parting shot.
Okay.
It's not a good parting shot, but let me tell you, I looked at them, and no, you see, these are UN ambassadors telling me. It's good to say it, that it was not something good they ever liked.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to say it. I'm just saying it.
And as you had, let me ask people in Kipipiri, if they fight blackout, they must run to their transformer and see
whether it is being vanquished,
otherwise
vandalized.
It is very serious.
Thank you very much, ladies.
I said this because they asked me to say it, so I have to say it.
Absolutely.
And,
thank you very much.
Timekeeping.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and God bless you for the wonderful job you're doing. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, and even for your prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're taking a breather. We're coming back.
What?
Cheza Loto Moto.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial *570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial *570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
What a conversation.
Yes, and as we say, the future is female.
It is.
And I think for you to be a woman in leadership, you also have to push as much as you're receiving the shoves.
Yeah.
But I think that was quite something. You can imagine if Regina was to go out in public and ask, do you want my head or my legs? I don't want the answer of that.
The conversation.
Yeah, that would have gone south, yeah? But the future is female, and I like it.
Absolutely.
And I like it.
And of course, that's why we put a cap on the bulletin. But we're not done just yet, because we have yet another interview, a quite interesting feature, speaking about women leadership. And that is what is upcoming with Gladys Mungai. But from this end, thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is John Jacob Kioria.
And I am Regina Manyara. Indeed, the future is definitely female. Good evening to you and welcome to this special edition of the 2/3 Gender Principle, where today we are dissecting the issue of women involvement in the political arena with a special focus on the recently launched report on the political economy analysis of women participation in Kenya, delving on the matters to do with the 2022 general elections. And on set, I'm joined by Bina Maseno, who comes from Badili, Africa. And then close to her, we have Ruth Kalundu, the Deputy CEO of the electoral body IBC, as well as the officer in charge of electoral issues at the Electoral Commission. Close to her is Wamboi Thiga. She is a politician. And at the extreme end is Daisy Amdani, the Executive Director of Crown Trust. Welcome, ladies, on set. I'm going to begin with you, Daisy, and I understand you're familiar with that particular recently launched report on the involvement of women in the 2022 general elections. My very first question to you, do you agree with the findings of that particular report? And if so, and if not, what is your point of diversion?
Thank you so much, Gladys, and thank you for having me here. I do agree with the findings of the report. In fact, the report has really just put into words a lot of what we've been saying are some of the barriers that women face in their political engagement and the barriers towards achieving the 2/3 gender principle and women's political participation. So generally, I agree with the report. My point of divergence would be with the area on campaign financing, because one of the issues that the report looks at is the cost of finance, but also it highlights the area that shows that it's not just the politicians that are dishing out money, but it's a demand that is coming from the citizens. And so there's a sense that implementing the Campaign Financing Act will really not do much in terms of addressing the issue of campaign financing and the cost of politics in Kenya. But I disagree, because there's a lot of dark money that is channeled through our political processes, and it's one of the key drivers of corruption. And one of the demands that the Campaign Financing Act makes is that politicians and political parties should reveal the sources of their funding. So we need to know who is funding these political parties, because it's not, the Campaign Financing Act doesn't look to restrict, but to demand accountability on sources of funding, but also restrict the amount that an individual person or entity can fund a party or a political candidate.
What do you have to say in terms of matters to do with finances for women when it comes to political campaigns? We have had various state agencies and various non-governmental agencies speaking to us about the issue of donor funding that comes to the extreme end of campaigns, and how does that affect candidature for women who are seeking to ascend into spaces of power?
In our cultures, not many women inherit even land, which you can actually use as collateral when you're trying to raise resources for campaigning. So at the end of the day, if you don't even have collateral, at the end of the day, if you don't have social capital, most of your peers are probably as broke as you, or they're still trying to hustle and look for employment, right? So your social capital, and then visibility. People have not been seeing you for quite some time, right? So visibility. So all this combine to minimize your ability to actually clinch that seat. And then it comes to also representation within the political party, right? How many young people, and especially young women, engage within the political party, and beyond engaging within the political party, infiltrate the leadership positions within the political party? Because at the end of the day, even when you had a figure mentioned about nomination, if you're not within the leadership structure of the political party, it means you have limited power in terms of how the processes take place and who they favor, who they don't favor.
You're very vocal when it comes to the manner in which nominations are conducted in political parties. Does that in one way or another affect women candidature?
During the 2022 national elections, a new pattern emerged, and that was the negotiated democracy. And this was because, or due to the coalition formation through the parties. And this saw that a lot of young women being edged out, because at the end of the day, you're not able to penetrate bigger, stronger parties. And this is because also, again, the aspect of financing comes in place. And also, again, if you do not have a political godfather, again, nobody's able to really ensure that your name stays on the table. So at the end of the day, you find that as young women, if you are not do not come from a political family or a name that has been there for a long while, it becomes also you lose on that end. And also we have a lot of party violence towards young women, because political parties are really not safe places for young people, and especially young women. And you find that there's a lot of physical violence, there's emotional violence, there's sexual violence. So if you're not able to really handle such matters.
Besides political parties being forced by law to ensure that women are given equal opportunities as men, the political parties themselves and their leaders, the spearheaders, and the owners of these political parties acknowledge women being equal candidates to their male counterparts.
Yes, again, as a commission, we We are speaking to all the stakeholders. The stakeholders, of course, the political parties are the major ones. But you see, even the voters, they are also stakeholders. So through voter education, we are actually talking to all our stakeholders, either state or non-state actors, to ensure that we bring all the women who are able to come out and participate. But again, as we realize, resources are not there for the women to come up, because you realize even when it comes to being nominated at the party level, a woman has to pay. When it comes to being nominated at IBC level, also there is a fee to be paid. So what we are looking forward as IBC is maybe probably to come up with a fund, or get a way of coming up with a fund so that we can actually involve more women. Maybe call it a women fund in electoral processes. Yeah, so that we can actually come out and let the women know during our voter education that don't worry, come forward, even if you don't have the resources. We as IBC or as a commission will do for you, or we have a certain donor somewhere who can do it for you. So that's what we are working towards the 2027 general election, and we are hoping that by that time, now that we have like 4 years to go, we'll be able to achieve it.
How do we move around that particular stereotype, Bina, that women, we are only supposed to, so to speak, go for women reposition, but when you want to run for a county Senate seat, a governor or something, you are told, songa kando. For you, you can only represent women in the capacity of a woman representative. And we have the male counterparts really having leveraging on that to the campaign against their women counterparts or competitors.
I think, first of all, it begins with our perception of women issues. You know, the fact that someone or a citizen, an ordinary citizen, would feel like a woman's issue should only be championed by a woman, you know, or a young person's issue should only be championed by a young person, or an elderly person by an elderly person. And I think we need to see all this issue. Like, a young person's safety threatens my own safety. A woman's safety threatens my own safety, you know. So it begins also with our view of leadership, and our view of leadership from the household. Because you see, when we talk about patriarchy, when we talk about cultural barriers, at the household level, you find that as a woman, your functions are reduced to your reproductive roles, whether you're cooking, whether you're supposed to give birth, you see. And that's why we're even saying earlier on, like, if you don't win the war at home in terms of how even your own people view leadership, then it's so hard to win outside the home, because the private sphere has a big influence on the public sphere.
Allow me to involve Thiga into this particular point. We've had women agencies, stakeholders pushing for the implementation of 2/3 gender rule. It's been over 10 years. At the moment, with the agenda before the committee, do you think we finally have the political goodwill, or the aspect of the 2/3 gender rule is finally coming to fruition?
Thank you for the question. This time, I really feel hopeful about the process. We've seen the president demonstrate goodwill by having a cabinet memo, and even with the bipartisan talks to the gender rule being a Kenya Kwanza item on the table. And I feel like this is the first president who's really taken into consideration what women and taking into consideration that women leadership principle is a must.
Allow me to end this particular interview here. Thank you very much for those insightful comments. Dear viewers, this brings us to the end of this particular interview done at Azure Hotel in Westlands. My name is Gladys Mungai, and on behalf of the entire crew that made this possible, I say thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of our news and the programming. Good night.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Tulimwona vizuri na hata nilimwona kwa